Good evening, everyone. Ramon Hunter here, and today we're going to be talking about the deltoid muscle. The deltoids, right, or the shoulder muscle. Some people call it Superman's cape. Some people call it the pumpkin muscle because when it is properly developed, it gives a digitation like that of a full-grown pumpkin. And this muscle is a is a very interesting muscle. Reason being because if you have a small frame, bodybuilders use this and other persons who just want to work on their physique and would want to give an appearance, a particular appearance. For persons with a small shoulder frame or with a small frame, this muscle adds the width to your shoulders. It adds the width to your upper body to give that appearance of broad shoulders. Now let's zoom into this muscle a little bit here. Let's zoom in. This highlighted muscle here. This is a triangular shaped muscle, the deltoids, a triangular shaped muscle of the shoulder. And it has three fibers. It has the anterior fiber here, as you can see with the cursor, and it has the middle fiber here, or some people call it the lateral fibers, and you have the posterior fibers here. If you want to get a proper rounded shoulder, you have to work all three fibers. And there are different exercises that can be used to really build and develop this muscle. Now, which is what we're going to really be looking into shortly. Let's have a look. I mentioned before that you have the anterior fibers, the middle fibers, and the posterior fibers. There you go. You have the anterior fiber here of the deltoid, you have the middle fiber here of the deltoid, and you have the posterior fiber here of the deltoid muscle. Now, the anterior fiber of the deltoid muscle, the primary movement is responsible for shoulder flexion, while the middle fibers is responsible for shoulder abduction. So if I can turn it down this way, you can see it here. Shoulder abduction, right? Shoulder abduction. So you have the middle fiber for shoulder abduction, and the posterior fiber is for shoulder extension. All right, but there's also another movement here, other movements that they show that the deltoid muscles are responsible for. You have shoulder horizontal adduction. You have the elbow here, the midline of the torso. When the elbow is in front of the midline of the torso, you have shoulder horizontal adduction, adduction. And if the elbow is behind the midline of the torso right here, then you have horizontal shoulder abduction, abduction. All right, so this movement here, the posterior fibers of the deltoid muscle is responsible for this movement, okay? Whereas the anterior fibers are responsible for this movement, and of course, you have the middle fibers responsible for this movement of the deltoid muscle. All right, so there are some exercises here that we can do. I want to show you first and foremost the shoulder flexion. Now, you can do shoulder flexion exercises. You can use a cable machine. You can use dumbbells. I have a plate here. You can do unilateral shoulder flexion like this. And take your time. It's nice and slowly and down. Up, boom, nice and slowly and down about shoulder height. Doing this exercise, you isolate the anterior fibers of the deltoids, give it a nice work. Or if you want, you can do it bilaterally. You can do both hands at the same time. You can use both hands at the same time to work the anterior fibers of the deltoid, right? Now, if you want to work the middle fibers of the deltoid, because you want to target, you want to knock the deltoid muscle from different angles, anteriorly, middle, and posteriorly. If you want to work the middle fibers of the deltoids, you can do shoulder abduction, all right? Now, shoulder abduction can either be done with an extended elbow or you can do it with a bent elbow. Now, you're probably asking what's the difference? Now, the difference is when the elbow is fully extended and the weight is at the end, you have a lengthened lever arm. So it's a little bit more challenging, a little bit more difficult for the muscle to be engaged in order to bring up the arm because you have the weight further away from the fulcrum and you have more force being generated from the muscle in order to lift up that arm with the weight all the way at the end. If it is too difficult for you, if this exercise is too difficult for you, then you can bend the elbow. Bending the elbow shortens the lever arm and you can lift more weight. You can lift more weight and do more reps in this position as opposed to this position. This position, you can progress to this position after you have mastered this position if you want. If you want a little bit more challenge, then you can extend the elbow and do it from straight elbow up and down. Lateral delt raise or shoulder abduction, as many of us know it as. Now, the last exercise that I want to talk to you about is shoulder horizontal abduction. And remember when I was saying that the elbow crosses the torso, it lies behind the torso. Now, an exercise for this is rear delt flies. Rear delt flies, I want to show you. For rear delt flies, I have two dumbbells here. What we're going to actually be doing is having the elbows out like this, right? So the elbows are out like that from side view, and you're going to move it back. So the thumb, the pinky finger is facing up towards the ceiling. The pinky finger is facing up towards the ceiling, and you're bringing the dumbbells in and out. In and out. You're leading with the pinky finger, in and out. You're leading with the pinky finger. Lead with the pinky finger pointing towards the ceiling, pointing upwards towards the ceiling. Doing this exercise helps to strengthen the rear delts, or the posterior deltoid muscle, right? Posterior deltoid muscle, as I said from before, is a posterior muscle right there, is that muscle right there. So the posterior fibers of the deltoid, if you want to develop that muscle, rear delt flies is a pretty good exercise that you can use. You also have face pulls. If you want to do, you can use face pulls. You can get a tube or a TheraBand, or you can use a cable, and you can do face pulls. That also helps to develop the posterior fibers of the deltoid muscle. All right, so that's it for today. Remember that there are many different exercises that can be used for the shoulder muscle. They'll show you some exercises that will help to isolate the different fibers of the shoulder muscle. But there are many other different exercises out there. And I really pray that in practicing these exercises, you get the results that you want, you achieve your goal. And remember, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I wish you all the best. Blessings on you.